Hey, welcome back to the channel. Today, this is the second part of a series I'm doing on how to collect case knives. And so this video is not like a history video, although you may get some history in it, but it's mainly designed to help you in actually collecting them, helping you look for things, understand the knives that you're looking at, hints about collecting them, and just all the general information that you need to collect those knives. This video is going to be on Case Brothers, which is actually a collective term that I use to group a bunch of knives into an era. And so actually this video is going to cover not only Case Brother knives, but other knives related to that era of knife making, where Case family was involved with them. And so if you'd like to hear more about that, find that interesting, go ahead and check out the video. Hey, welcome back to the Fortified Castle. Hi to all my viewers. And thank you for the support you all gave me in the live show yesterday. It went really well, I thought. Of course, I'm going to need more feedback from you to know whether that is true or not. I think initially I'm getting some positive reviews on it. I know I learned some things talking about hatchets and axes, and so that was really cool. So today we're talking about, this is a second in a series of videos. We're talking about Case Brother knives, and there's a picture right here of the Case Brothers, by the way. John, Gene, Andrew, and who is the third one? William Russell. How could I forget WR? Anyhow, the big tall guy is Job Case. And so it's a collective term, and during a time period from 1886 to 1914, not only are we going to be talking about Case Brother knives, but also other knives associated with Case family members during that time period of 1886 to 1914. And so it's a kind of a collective video. And let's see, why don't we start off with, I know you're already sitting there saying, wait a minute, Case Brothers didn't start making knives till 1900. What are you talking about? And so we'll start right there. Okay, so we're going to talk about the very first known example of a case knife being produced by the Cases. It's not going to be what you think it's going to be. It's an example that is largely left out of any researchers or historians' account of the Case family involvement in knives. And so this book right here by Brad Lockwood, who is a Case family member and had access to, the Case family tradition, documents this company right here, North American Cutlery Company. The whole Tang stamp read North American Cutlery Company, Beaver City, Nebraska. Now that's kind of weird. So when the Case Brothers left Cattaraugus in 1886, they went west to Nebraska, to a place called Spring City, Nebraska. And their intent was to raise cattle and to raise horses. Horses was a passion of the Cases as a whole, but definitely the Case Brothers. And so Beaver City was a city 14 miles to the north of Spring City. And the Case brothers went up there and started a cutlery company. Now, nobody in Beaver City recalls knives ever being produced there. And so the thought is that the Cases contracted knives, which they had done before. They had done it in Cattaraugus with Cattaraugus. So they probably contracted and probably with Cattaraugus and sold those knives, either Cattaraugus or Platts and Son knives, out in the Midwest and were successful at it. And so that is the earliest case related knife that you're going to find. You're not going to find it. It's very rare. I saw a picture of the two knives. One was a razor and one was a jackknife, but I can't find the picture now to put it in the video. Oh, man. So that is the very first case knife that you're going to find, dating probably from 1889 to 94 or 1894, something like that. So they're the most rare case knives from North American Cutlery Company. Okay, so we're going to look at some of the Case Brother Tang stamps and just go down them, the list that you can see them. This, by the way, is Sargent's Knives and Razors and Identification and Values. Great book. A lot of case information in this book. Probably almost half the book is about case knives, so it's a great book to have. So this first Case Brothers Tang stamp, Gowanda, New York, 1896. So this is when the Cases came back from Spring City, Nebraska, decided to start their own business in Little Valley, and were contracting knives out. And Gowanda, New York would have been the Charlie Platts and Sons. And so those were the first knives that they were selling. But I'm sure they contracted with a lot of different people. Those are amongst the earliest knives that you're going to find right there. Case Brothers and Company, Gowanda, New York. You see, we're just... We're just not looking at WR. Okay, here's another one, Kane Cutlery Company. This was a business that was taken over by the Case Brothers in 1909. It wasn't very long lasted. It's not real clear why they did it. I think John D. Case was going to run that company right there. Yeah. You see another one, Kane Cutlery Company. It had a couple different names, and you can see the date there, 1907 to 1909. Case Manufacturing Company, Little Valley, New York. That was another name that they used when they were in Little Valley. J.D. Case Company, Kane, Pennsylvania. So J.D. started this company right here, and it changed to Kane Cutlery Company right there. And Little Valley Knife Association, Little Valley, New York, 1900. Ignore the WR Case. And then this one right here, Case Brothers Cutlery Company, 1912. And so these are part of the companies that the Case Brothers established or used and sold knives under, and those are the Tang stamps that you'll see on Case Brother knives. Prior to them actually establishing a factory, which they did in 1901. So I'll show you those Tang stamps now. You can see the different Tang stamps that they used once they started their factory. The Tang stamps didn't change all that much, but there's quite a few different ones there, and those are the ones you're looking for Case Brothers. So I want to show you the some of the different models here, because this is going to lead into another discussion. So again, this is out of Sargent's book. These are all Case Brother knives here. They're listed in a section called older case knives, and these are all Case Brother knives. As you look down this, I believe these are taken. There's a bunch of these, so let me just show you a bunch of them real quick. These are all different case knives, and I have a catalog from 1904, a Case Brother catalog from 1904, and all of these knives are listed in that catalog. So I went through them. So I think what happened is Sargent had somebody do illustrations from that catalog. But you can see the double X on the double X tested mark right here, which Case Brothers started using around 1900, and that was on the blade. Sometimes you'll see got another picture up there. All of these have the XX because that's what they were doing in 1904. But some of the I'm showing you pictures now of knives that have the case tested XX up here, and then the last way they did it, probably around I'd say 1910 into 1914, was they put tested XX on the back on the Tang. So this is the show side of the Tang. They put it on the pile side of the Tang, and those are the three different ways that they used case XX. So the best advice I can give you as a collector, and if you're wanting to collect some of these Case Brother knives, is to get a book like this. Get a book and learn what they look like. There's a couple things to notice here. You see the model number right there, 6203 on this knife, and that's what it's listed in the catalog too, by the way. And so Case Brothers was putting model numbers on their knives where W.R. Case and Sons were not. And so W.R. Case and Sons probably started around 1920, 1916, 1920 to put model numbers on their knives, but they really didn't fully incorporate that till 1949. But that's a big difference between W.R. Case and Son knives and Case Brother knives. You'll see model numbers on these knives, and that's important because if you know the history of W.R. Case and Sons, you might think this is a counterfeit because it has a model number on it. But actually, they were one of the first ones to put model numbers on their knives. Also notice how a lot of the spear point blades look wide, and just the general geometry of these knives, they look strange, don't they? They don't look like this. They're kind of these are kind of blocky. And even when you go back to the 70s, they're not much better. They're still kind of blocky. And the serpentine knives in particular are really well formed here in the 70s and on. Whereas back in the day, the serpentine weren't that well formed. They were more irregular when you looked at them. Here's some other ones right here. You can see the shields on there. Most of these Case Brother knives had shields, but not all of them. Okay, so definitely, like the Pearl, mostly didn't have shields. They did put some shields on some Pearl ones. You can see right there on the stack, Warncliffe Whittler, that it did not have a shield. You can see the center swell balloon and knife did not have a shield. Again, that was Pearl. So mostly they use shields. And look at this strange shield that they used right there. But they didn't use a lot of them. This was mostly what they used, this shield right here. And there's a reason why I'm pointing this out to you. Okay, so when you're talking about these really old cases, you're talking a lot of money. So WR Case and Son knives can run to 6,000, 10,000, sometimes more. Case Brother knives in mint condition can run quite a bit higher than that because they're older and they're the original Case knives that were started. And so they can really go for a good premium, and because of that, they're counterfeited. So we're going to talk a little bit about how to some ways that you can tell whether the knife is original or whether it's counterfeited. Okay, so this is going to kind of be a dual discussion. We're going to look at ways that you can identify a counterfeit knife, but at the same token, we're also going to be talking about how to determine the age of a knife, which is not an exact science. It's more like an art. But the primary thing you want to do is tell whether the knife is counterfeit or not. And so age can play a factor in determining that. And as I mentioned to you before, if you look at these knives, this is 1910 to 1920. This is a Robeson knife. When you look at the bone, look at the color of that bone. And so it's yellowing and with age, and a lot of times it's really, really brown. You can see it right there. And so the jigging on these are much more extravagant, detailed. They're deeper, and also cooler, right? So it's just neater. When you look at the jigging here, it's more mechanical, and you can see, if you look closely down, you can see the lines from the jigging machine. But these were jigged by hand, not a jigging machine. And so you'll notice if you look down in there, you don't see those lines that you see in here. And so you can tell, one, that this is older bone. And I'll just show you one of these knives here. This is an old knife. It's not counterfeit, but you can tell that the bone jigging is new. You can look at the die. It's still what I call marbling, and so you can still see how the die look kind of, I call that marbling on the sides there. You can really see it good on Case knives. This is a new one here from 2021. You can see how it's marbling. It doesn't have that consistent color. Some of the white bone is coming through. It's really cool. It's really neat to look at that. But You don't see that on these knives at all because of the age of the knife. And when you look at this knife right here, you can still see that marbling. You see it? From where the die didn't penetrate all the way. And so another thing is you'll notice that you could see the transitions pretty heavy here on the bone. So this is an old knife, but they've replaced the bone. That doesn't bother me at all. This is a Continental cutlery knife, but you definitely can tell this is not original bone by looking at it and gauging. Back in the day, in 1920, when this knife was made, they brought the bone to meet the bolster, so it's a smooth transition. So right away, okay, there's something wrong with this knife, and it's not that's a bad thing that it has any new bone in it, but that would cause me to stop and really look at the knife more closely. And these knives, are not that expensive. Whereas if you were talking, a case knife in that time period, it would be very expensive, and you'd want to just slow down. Here's another one. This is a Canton cutlery knife, original knife in great shape, but again, you could see the bone here. Is just way too new. You see it right there to be original. I don't think it is original. And Canton usually put a shield on their a knife. There's no shield on here, probably because the knife has been the scales have been replaced. You'll also notice that they're button spun, which was not standard to do back in the turn of the century. And so that's another indicator that the handles have been replaced on this knife. But just looking at it and comparing it to knives like these, you can see the dramatic difference, how brown this bone is on here, how smooth it is, even though it has nicks and things like that. So those are really good indicators of the age of the knife, and also whether it's been counterfeited. And another thing you would look at is the fact of these shields. So this knife never had a shield on it. That's not unusual. Not every knife had a shield. Usually the less expensive knives didn't have a shield. But once again, you could see the extravagant, irregular jigging done by hand on this knife. You can also tell when you look at the pins. So that is an irregular pin. You see it right there. And this is indicative, that's a work that maybe a guy who replaced, a bone, he might do that kind of work because he just is not skilled. But also back in the 1800s, they were getting better and better at pinning, and often they were irregular. I'll show you an example of that. See, best example I have. When you look at the pin jobs of the new case knives, and this was like this from the 70s on. You see how flat and smooth that pin is right there, and in the button spun pin in the middle, those are just very precisely done on the knife. And when you look back, they're pretty good, but they're not quite the same pins. The other thing is the pins were a lot smaller, and the middle ones weren't button spun. So this is a Robertson that dates to around 1910 to 1920. Here's a Remington, and again, you can look at the pins and see that they're pretty nicely done. But the bone here is really deep, dark color, and it's merged to fit the bolster. So you're dating the knife, but you're also able to look at a knife and tell whether somebody's taken a knife like this and turned it into an old case knife. And so I mentioned this once before. There's a couple ways that they'll do that. One way is they'll take an old frame and that's original, and then put a fake blade on it. And what they will do on these blades is they'll grind off this original mark on the blade, and then they'll put the Tang stamp of, say, Case Brothers in this case, or another knife, and that's how they forge it. And so at that point, you're going to have a knife that looks like a case knife. Now, I'm showing you a picture right now where you can see an obvious fake. So when you're looking at this Tang stamp right now, you'll notice that the letters are not equal or even, and usually they were. Not always, but usually they were even on the knife, and usually it was stamped by a die, and that's why they were even. But on this knife here, you can tell that the spacing's not even, and then you have some double struck letters there. Another real good indication that that is a knife that has been ground down. Also, if you look real closely at this picture, you can see a better shot of how the letters are all messed up. But also look beyond those letters into the metal itself, and you see how it looks like the metal is just like sweeping one way. You can tell it's been ground down. Okay, and the other indicator on that would be when you look at this blade, you'll notice that this is the same thickness as this blade right here, and on a Tang that's been ground down, it's going to make the blade thinner. So that's another indicator that maybe the knife has had a new Tang stamp put on it right there. One way that you can tell that it's a fake. Let me find a real good example here. Hold on. Okay, so nowadays, and I've done this for 50 years, really, maybe even longer, maybe 60 years, they'll take the metal and they'll stamp it out with a die, just like a cookie cutter. It goes down a machine, it's going boom, 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 and it's stamping the rough shape of this blade out. And then the blade will go in, and a machine will take down and put the grind on the knife. And so that's the angle that's created from shaving metal off from the spine here down to the edge here. This is a flat grind, and this is done by machine, and it's very, very smooth and consistent along this edge here. And then it's the blade is stamped and stuck in to be heat treated. When you look at an older knife, if you look at this knife, you see how that blade seems to be like a little off on the distal taper. There's a little, let me see if I can get, there's a little irregularity right here, and then it widens a little and a little more irregularity. That's because these are hammer forged. And so some companies stamped out blades back at the turn of the century, and some didn't. The Case Brothers did stamp out blades, but then they were forged, and the edge of this knife wasn't done by grinding, but it was done by hammer forge. And so that's why you see that irregularity in these older blades. It's like, if you look at it like that, you probably wouldn't pick it up too quick. I can pick it up really quick, but if you put it next to another knife, it's really apparent. So the geometry on the spine of this knife, look how perfect that is. And that's because these blades, aren't hammer forged. and these are. You see that? So that's another way to tell whether a blade is counterfeited. So if these blades, you see a Case Brother blade on there and it looks straight as an arrow like this right here, that's an indicator they took that blade off another knife and ground the Tang down and put a Case Brothers Tang stamp on it. Or, we're talking about cases, so any case that would apply to. And so that's a really good indicator is whether that thing looks like it's ground down or not. The other way is to take a good blade, genuine Case Brothers blade, but put it onto a different knife. In both cases, by the way, you've ruined the collector value of the knife, and it's not what you think it is. And so, hold on a minute. To tell whether you switched an original blade onto a knife frame that is not original, it's really handy to have a book like this so that you can look at them and you can see the type of frames that the company that you're looking at made. But when you look at these knives here, one thing you'll notice is these don't appear as regular as these type of knives. You see how different they are? And even when you take like the same design, these are both serpentine knives, but this looks a lot weirder and a lot more acute, the serpentine on it, than this knife right here. And that's one way that you can tell if you've got these knives that just don't seem to be consistent with the age. Another way you can tell is if you look at this bolster, you see how the bolster is rounded over nearly to the edge here. And look how thin this edge is where this bolster comes over. This is a Remington knife. But this is consistent in the type of work that manufacturers did. Look at this as a case. Again, this case is from the probably 1905 to 1910. Look at how the bolster rounds over almost to nothing here. Let's see that? And so that's one way you can look at these knives and tell whether it's a later frame like the 50s and 60s, and somebody's just put a early American knife blade on it and counterfeited that blade on that knife. Here's another example of just, the different, these knives just look different than these knives right here, and this is a Tony Bose. So Tony Bose did put some of the old-fashioned curves in this knife, but it still doesn't look like the original knives from back in the day. So I wanted to show you one more example of identifying a knife in the era that it came from. And in the picture there, you can see the different blades that Case Brothers made and put on their knives. Now that doesn't seem like a lot of blades, and but that is, what Case Brothers put on their knives. These blades right here. Let's see, those are razors. Let's get back to that section. I'm sorry, I took my mark out of here. You know what? Maybe I didn't take my mark out of here. Yeah. So when you look at that picture and then you look at these knives, they look like these knives. And that's how you can tell whether these are original blades or not. Because you've got that picture out of a catalog that shows you what these blades were like. And so that's another way that you can tell whether the knife has been fabricated or not, is just knowing what kind of blades and what kind of materials. For instance, Case Brothers didn't use ivory. So if you see a Case Brother knife marked in ivory, hey, they didn't use ivory. Okay, and they really didn't use a lot of, they had very few celluloid knives. They had one or two models of celluloid knives, and all the rest of their stuff was genuine pearl, genuine stag, and nicely jigged bone. The wood was ebony wood that they used. And so, knowing the handle materials, knowing what the knife blades look like, these are all indicators for you of whether it's a genuine knife or not. Excuse me. All right, guys, we are going to wrap this up. So I've been able to show you, even though I don't have any Case Brother knives, I have shown you through catalog listings of Case Brother knives, what they look like. We looked at the blades, the handle materials. Oh, you know what? We need to go over the model numbers. So if you look at that picture up there, you can see the model numbers. They were usually 4 numbers. Sometimes they added a 0 before it or at the end of that number, which indicated a double bolster knife, two bolsters, and rather than a bare head. And so the first number was the type of handle material they used. The second number was the number of blades on it. The last 2 numbers was the model number. And it's really easy to find that information just by Googling it. You can find it. But again, if you've got you a good reference material, it's in these types of reference materials. You can find it. This is a more general collector's book, and they have a good case section in here, and that kind of information is listed for case. You can see the Tang stamps here, and they also give you the handle materials and how to identify the model numbers on these knives. So even this book is probably easier to get than the sergeant's book, and probably a lot more affordable. Anyhow, so yeah, we're going to wrap it up. I hope you found it informative. I really hope it helps you out. If you're looking for these case knives, you get into collecting the older ones, you can always reference this video to find out about information you weren't aware of or just need to refresh. So thanks again. Really appreciate you checking out the channel and checking out the video. Thanks again.